Well, Luka Doncic no longer plays basketball in Dallas, but as a consolation, I still play poker in Dallas. So we've got that going for us, I guess. Let's have a day. We get in the mix on a Sunday afternoon. I buy in for $1,000, but I quickly rebuy for 300 more. So we've got 1,300 chips in front of us. Let's see what I can do with them. And it's a monster right away. Ace King under the gun. I raise a 20. The player next to me calls, and we flop top pair, top kicker. Definitely gonna keep betting, and she keeps calling. Turns a jack, not my favorite card, but it should be okay. I keep betting, and again, she keeps calling. Last card's an ace, so now we have top two, feeling really great about the situation now. I bet 150, and she goes into the tank, but ends up again making a call with king queen. Seems like people don't really believe me when I bet. Maybe I should take note of that. Get a bit of a downgrade to king jack in the hijack. I raise the 30 over a straddle, the cutoff, and the straddle call. So 3 ways to a 10 high board. I feel like with the 2 overs and a gutter to the nuts, I've got just enough to keep the pressure on. I keep betting, and the cutoff, same player from last hand, makes the call. Turns a 10, not great, but I think I can get her to fold all her flush draws, straight draws, maybe even a 9. I bet 125, but she calls again. Last card, I wouldn't call it beautiful, but it is pretty. It's the queen of spades. So we hit our gutter, but the flush does come in. She could also have a full house. Still, gotta go for value. I bet 150, and she calls right away with aces. So got even luckier than I thought. I thought my king and jack would be live, but I could only hit the queen, and I did. So I was off to a great start, but I did lose 250 in a bomb pot, calling down with the second flush. On the river, a player went all in, and sure enough, he had the nut flush. I folded, but I still lost more chips than maybe I could have. And then it's the young man's hand, ace 5 suited. A player raises over a straddle, I 3-bet, and he makes the call. We flop top pair, but it's a pretty dicey board, and we do have a really weak kicker. Still, after he checks, I'm gonna bet, and he calls. Turns another 9, really good card actually. Unless he has a 9, we now chop with all the aces that are better than ours. So if he has like ace jack, ace 10, we chop. So when he checks, I don't want to let his draws see a river card for free. I bet once again, and this time he makes the fold. Then it's our turn to straddle. We've got pocket 6s, there's a limp, a raise to 35, 2 callers. I call looking to hit a 6, and then the under the gun limper puts in the limp raise. She goes 110. Limp raises are always scary, but this size isn't that scary, and I'm really surprised when all the 3 guys before me fold. I feel like the pot odds are pretty big. I'm not gonna fold like them. I call looking to hit a 6, and bang. We do it. The ace is a little scary just in case she does have pocket aces again. But still, when she goes all in, I snap call, and the board runs out pretty freaking clean. She shows ace king, and look, I hate to do it to the same person 3 times in a row, but I've got her beat again. We're off to a really good start. Alright, back to the monsters. Ace king again, this time on the button. Player raises a 35 over a straddle. It's the same guy I 3-bet earlier with ace 5. This time I've got something much better. And once again, he makes the call. Unfortunately, this time we don't flop a pair. But when he checks, ace king's gonna be good most of the time. I continue for a small size, and he puts in a raise. Now I wish I checked back, but I think he's going to have a lot of bluffs still. There's really not much value unless he flopped a set. So I make the call, would love to see a king on the turn, but nope. It's a 9, he keeps piling on the aggression, 465. And well, I might be good, but am I really going to call down with ace high? Probably not. I fold, and he shows a 5. So he probably had 5-4, really nice play by him. Took the pot right out from under me. Then it's back to the suited aces. Ace 3, I raise the 40 over straddle and limp. The big blind calls, and the limper gets out of the way, so we're heads up, and we flop a 3. He checks, bottom pair, I'm gonna check back, and we turn trips, but the flush does come in too. He checks again, I'm gonna go for value, $50, and he raises to 225. Not the best spot, but we do have trips in position. I make the call. River's an offsuit queen, and I really don't want to see a bet here. I think he's going to have a flush a lot of the time, but instead he checks. Do I go for value? I don't think so. I just check it back and say I have a 3. He mucks. So I'm not sure if he was semi-bluffing with 1 diamond and maybe he hit the queen and just decided to check down a showdown, or if he had a king and he was going for thin value on the turn. But either way, things are going pretty well, and I pick up 9-8 offsuit in the straddle. There's a limp, a raise to 35. I've already got $10 out there. I call, limper calls. We flop nothing, but it's really dry. So when action checks to the button, he continues for 40. Like I said a couple videos ago, I don't want to let people stab freely against me. I raise it up to 130, just trying to get his air balls out of the way, and he does fold. But the only problem is the third player in the hand cold called. So we're going heads up to a turn, and it's the 7 of hearts. Well, what could he cold call with? I think it's either a set, which is a nightmare, a flush draw, which is even worse, or a jack. Let's hope it's a jack. I'm gonna keep betting, and yeah, this is pretty dumb. It was a pretty bold play to raise the flop, and now we've kind of been found out. I should really just give this up, but yeah, again, I bet. He makes the call. River doesn't help us, because why would it? And now I do have the opportunity to just run it. I think at this point, he doesn't have a jack. He either has a flush or he has a set. And a set might fold. A flush definitely won't. But I just have no way of knowing what he has. I mean, he could easily have the nuts in this situation. I check, give up, and he shows pocket deuces. Nice hand. Let's not punt again, okay? Then we got pocket 5s in the big blind. There's a raise to 30. We go 4 ways to a flop. Can we hit a set? No, we cannot, but it's queen, queen, deuce, rainbow. Pocket 5s will still be good a lot of the time, so when the original raiser c-bets a third pot and the other players get out of the way, I'm gonna try to protect my hand. It's hard for pocket 5s to hold up when all 5 cards come out, so I make a small raise and he makes the call. Turns an 8, no help at all. Really, only 2 cards in the deck would help us. I check and he bets really small, $90. Always tricky when people bet weird sizes like this, whether it's a really small size or a big one. I think it's possible that he floated me on the flop just trying to see if I was full of shit, and when I check it kind of does seem like I'm full of shit. So he's putting in the small bet to get that shit out of the way. I think 5s could still be good, so I make the call. River's an ace, really bad, so a lot of the few bluffs that he had just got there. I check, give up, and he bets 160. Again, super small size. There's no way that 5s held up. I fold, and he's nice enough to show a queen. So he got the absolute max out of me, and that's my bad, guys. Then we've got ace-5 of clubs again in the straddle. The cutoff raises to 30. I'm not going to 3-bet this time. I just call, and we flop a flush draw on a board that will be really good for a man in my position and not that good for a man in his position. I check, he bets 50. Don't love to see the big size, but I'm going to raise it up 150, and he makes the call. Are there any more clubs in that deck? No, but there is another 6. Not a great card, reduces the odds that I had a set or 2 pair on the flop, and my plan was to just jam the turn, but with the board pair, I think I can go smaller. I think it looks stronger. Like, just imagine if I have a full house. I don't want to scare him off. I want to just bet a size that makes him want to call and see the river. Whether he has a draw or an overpair, I want him to see the river. I bet 150. In reality, of course, I don't want to see a river. I just want to end the hand right here. But he makes the call, which I'm kind of surprised by. I thought he'd either jam or fold just because he doesn't have very much left in his stack. But either way, let's hit a club. Nope. Offsuit queen. Feels like the jig is up. The only hand I beat is like jack 10 of clubs, maybe king 10 of clubs. I check, he goes all in. I think about it for a little bit just in case he has jack 10 or king 10 of clubs, but it's just really unlikely. It's way more likely that he has a big hand. I fold and he shows aces. Once again, I have to say nice hand to my opponent. But this hand rarely lets me down. It's the Cowboys. I raise it up to 20 and we go 4 ways to a flop that isn't super great. I mean, we probably still have the best hand, but it's a hand that I should probably check. So that's what I do. The button checks it back and the turn is really bad. Any deuce or 7 now has a straight. So when 2 players check to me, I'm not checking for deception anymore. I'm just checking, hoping it checks down. Instead, the button bets big, 90. The other 2 players get out of the way, and my hand's still so under-repped. I know he's not doing this with worse for value, but again, only a 7 and a deuce beats me. I make the call. Final card's an 8. I check. Hopefully he'll check back. Nope. He goes big again. 275. So it looks like it's a 7 or nothing. And the thing is, this player said before he called pre-flop, this is a button call, which makes me think there's a lot more random 7s in his hand than there would be normally. Things like 10-7 off, Jack-7 off, Ace-7 off, just these raggedy hands. Maybe he has those. And usually when people bet really big, like over the pot, they have it. So let's show a little discipline, right? I fold and show what I folded, and he's nice enough to show King 10 off suit. Woof. Very nice play. Got me off of a pretty big hand. Nice hand, Ken. And at this point, I figure it's best to quit while I'm behind. Cash out what I've got left, but surely a super pro like me will get it back tomorrow, right? Back at it on a Monday. Great to be working on a Monday. Buying for about $1,300 again. Let's have a better day. We start with ace-4 of hearts on the button. There's a raise to 30, 2 callers. Could go either way here, right? Calling's fine, 3-betting's fine. I decide to squeeze this time, 150. The original raiser gets out of the way, but one of the callers makes another call. We flop middle pair and a gutter, so when he checks, I think it's a good one to check back. Turns a king, brings in a flush draw. He checks again, and here I could start turning my hand into a bluff. Try to get a pair of 5s, some middling pairs like 6s, 7s, 8s to fold, if not now, then on the river. But I think I still have too much showdown to bluff. I check it back, and the river's the jack of spades. He checks, and now at this point, I think I have the loser. I feel like if he had some kind of suited connector that didn't hit, stuff like 10-9 suited, 8-7 suited, he would have bluffed at this point, try to get me off of ace high. So I got a bet now. I could rep a king, I could rep a jack, I could even rep a flush, right? Like imagine if I had ace-4 of spades instead of hearts, I would play it the exact same way. I bet 175 and he goes into the tank, and this is not really the guy you want to bluff. To be totally honest, he's probably the best player in the player pool at the 2-5 game at TCH. So it's definitely a little scary, and he does end up flicking in the call with pocket 7s. Really great call, and I think in hindsight, I made a mistake by not going on the turn and then the river. I don't think his hand could have faced 2 streets of aggression when it would look like I had ace-king a good amount of the time. So we get hero called correctly there. Then I pick up pocket jacks a few hands later. Under the gun opens to 15. I'm right behind him. I make it 50. The player across from us cold calls, could be a variety of things there, and under the gun calls too, so we're 3 ways to a flop, and it's a good one for pocket jacks. Still have an overpair, gonna c-bet 55, cold caller gets out of the way, but under the gun makes another call. Flush comes in on the turn, but we still have an overpair and the jack of diamonds. So when he checks, I'm gonna keep going for value, betting small, 135. He tanks for a long time. I'm not sure if he's going to raise, fold, or call, but eventually it is the latter. He calls. And the final card is a deuce. Now, I was planning to check back most rivers, but this one in particular, I think we gotta bet. Don't want to leave any meat on that bone, and I did just get caught bluffing after 3-betting a suited ace, so it's a good time to go for value. I bet 360, he snap calls. Don't love the snap, and sure enough, he's got 10-7 of diamonds for a flush. Well, I had a good start last video and I ended up losing. I'm having a bad start here, so maybe I'll end up winning. We get Jack 9 suited in the cutoff. There's a raise to 25 over a limp. I call, and we end up going 4 ways to a flop that is very wet, and we do have a big piece of it. Queen Jack 9 with the diamond flush draw. The pre-flop raiser keeps going. He bets 75, and for this larger sizing, I'm not gonna raise my bottom 2. I just call. Under the gun calls too, so still 3 ways to a really bad turn card. King of spades. Action checks to me. I'm happy to check it back. Hope nobody's got a straight or a better 2 pair. And our hand gets even worse on the river as another king rolls off. Under the gun checks. The aggressor to this point keeps aggressing. He bets 75, so a really small size. There's no way he has a straight. I don't think he has a full house, but he might, and he's trying to bait one of us into raising. I think it's more likely that he has some kind of 2 pair better than ours, or a king at best. I feel like I could get those hands to fold. King, queen, king, jack are really in my wheelhouse, maybe pocket 9s even. I raise to 375. Under the gun folds, and under the gun +1 goes into the tank. Eventually, he flicks in the call with black aces. That's a really good call, honestly. I did not think I'd get called by that. I thought maybe ace-king would make a crying call, but this is really impressive by him, and once again, I learned that nobody folds in Texas. I'm still a little tilted a few hands later, so maybe that's why I'm in the mix with 7-5 offsuit. We didn't flop anything, but action check through. We turn a straight draw, but there is a flush out there. Action check through again. River comes a board pairing 6, and I don't think anybody has an ace. I doubt anybody has a 6. I'm gonna bet because I could have either of those two things. And I did just bet into 4 players, so it should look pretty strong. The first 3 agree with me, they all fold, but the last player, the small blind, makes the call with a pair of 10s. Did I mention that nobody folds in Texas? Really rough start, but a bomb pot could always get you out of it. I've got really small cards, and that's good because most of the cards out there are also really small. Action checks all the way to me on the button. I've got 2 pair and a straight draw on one, and middle pair and a wrap on the other. Really strong. I bet $100 and 4 players call, so we're still 5 ways going into some turns. We turn the nuts up top. That's really good, but there are 2 flush draws now, and a king on the bottom board, which doesn't help us at all. Action checks to me again. I'm gonna pot it here. We have the nuts on one, but it's really vulnerable when I get some draws out of the way, and we still have a good chance to scoop. Lots of cards could give us the nuts on the bottom, so I bet 620, and only 1 player over in seat 1 makes the call. There are some really good rivers out there that could come, but that's not what happens. It's a 9 of clubs up top, so the front door flush comes in, and it's a board pairing king on the other board. No way we have that one. He checks. I have very little behind. I check back, just hoping that we're chopping, and we are. He's got a full house, 7s full of kings on the bottom, and he missed his diamond draw up top. So we both had a decent chance of scooping if he had a diamond up top, or if I hit a 6, 5, 4, or ace on the bottom. One of us would be scooping, but all in all, it chops a pretty fair result, and we each make a couple $100 from the players who folded. Then we're in the straddle. There's a limp, a raise to 40, and I 3-bet to 180. What do I got? Do I have aces, kings? Well, if I gave you 10 guesses, I don't think you would guess. It's 9-7 offsuit. And look, I know how this looks. Okay, this doesn't look good. But I had to read that the cutoff was pretty weak on this raise, and I decided to go with it. So after thinking about it for just a little bit, he decides to fold. So nice to get something through for once. And I flash my cards to my neighbor who is in this next hand. He raises up to 30 over the straddle. I'm on the button with, okay, again, it's not a great hand, I know, but nobody 3-bet bluffs 2 times in a row in a short span. The second one always looks really strong, so I 3-bet 3 deuce suited. This time our opponent makes the call, so we're seeing a flop. There could be a really great disguise board out there that we just smash, but that's not what happens. It's more of a range board for us. Ace, king, 9, rainbow. He checks. I can't check back 3 high, guys. I put out an $80 bet. Hopefully this gets through, and it actually does. So kind of punty, but builds the confidence a little bit, and then we pick up ace 8 of hearts. I raise it up to 30 over a straddle, the big blind, and straddle call, so we're 3 ways to a flop, and we flop the nut flush draw. Action checks to me. I think this is actually a good one to check back, and I do so, and we absolutely smash the turn, 6 of hearts. Big blind leads out 75, straddle calls, I gotta put in a raise. 275 to go, the big blind makes the call, straddle gets out of the way, let's see a clean river, and we do not. It's the queen of diamonds, so the board pairs. If he has like queen 10, queen 9, set of 6s, set of 9s, we are in big trouble. But after he checks, I still gotta go for value. I make it 425. And he tells me you're lucky the board paired. He folds what he says was a flopped straight. Actually, I'd say he was pretty lucky that the board paired. But either way, nice to win a few. We're actually not down very much, even after the terrible start. Let's lock in and make a nice session out of this. Next, we raise up king 7 of diamonds. Go 4 ways to a flop. That doesn't help us too much. Some backdoor possibilities, but overall not great. I check it over, and the other players check it back. Turn brings in the spade flush, and I do have a gutter, but overall, not a whole lot, obviously. Still, I think when I check the flop to these guys, I have a lot of flush draws, including nut flushes, so I'm gonna start repping that. I bet $75, and only the hijack right across from us makes the call, so heads up to a river, no help to us, queen of diamonds. I'm not so convinced that he has a strong hand, but he might be convinced that I do, so I bet $200, and he goes into the tank. Please fold, please fold, please fold, and he doesn't call or fold. He raises. My cards hit the muck before he even gets it out. That one felt a little bit unnecessary. And this next one kind of does too. I've got ace-6 suited in early position. I raised the 30. Gill jack right next to me makes it 100. I've been raising a lot. I think this could be light, and I'm gonna pounce on that assumption. I raised to $300. 4-bet bluffing out of position. Don't love doing it, but sometimes you have to. Unfortunately, he makes the call, and we're in not a great situation, especially when the flop is jack 3 deuce all diamonds. So it's either bluff or give up. There's very little hope of us hitting a strong hand at any time at this point. And the thing is, when he 3-bet calls in position, he could have so many things. He's actually uncapped. He could have aces or kings. He could have ace king with a diamond or two. Could even have pocket jacks, right? So with this hand, I'm gonna wave the white flag early. I check. He ends up checking back. Turn, still no help. I check again. He checks again. Last card's a jack, so it's possible we chop with other ace highs now. I check, he bets $400. This will usually be value, but he could also be getting me off a chop with an ace. I don't think he's gonna have really much at all that I beat, but I could put in the bluff jam, but at this point, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't look very credible. I decided to just let it go, and he's nice enough to show pocket tens with no diamond. So actually, we probably could have gotten him off this hand with a bet or two, but really the best way to play it would have been to fold pre-flop. I end up getting out of there shortly after. I think I've punted enough to the table already. Pretty ugly number on the day, and well, it's an even uglier number for the 2 sessions in total. Not my best showing at all. Let's talk about it. Okay. Well, 2 not so great days in a row. Not playing great, but also, can I hit a hand sometimes? And also, why don't people fold? Like, I feel like aces, when there's 2 kings, a jack, a queen, a 9 out there, you could fold those, but it's not happening for me lately. I definitely have to rein it in. I've been way too punty. There's no doubt about it. You can roast me in the comments. I deserve it. But, you know, upswings are always around the corner. Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. See you next time on the KDog Poker Vlog.